Good evening, Lou Bravo family. Welcome back. I will be continuing the journey at which I started from yesterday's video dealing with the rule of 72. If you have not seen that, I would recommend probably as a primer for everything else that I'm going to do. Might not be a bad idea just to take about 10 to 15 minutes to go through that, and then we continue on here. I'm going to give a little bit of a history lesson primer background, maybe catch lightning in a bottle a little bit with the benefit of hindsight, particularly pre-internet hindsight in the realm of penny stocks, and actually show you how it relates to what we're trying to do here today. For those who have paid attention and listened to Lou over the past few years, he was very explicit on many occasions about making the decision to be that type of person who makes money or earns money. There's nothing wrong with either one of them, particularly if your plan to earn money by punching a clock is to get yourself out of that rat race, move forward, and create that path of financial freedom. But ultimately, the reason why making money and moving money is going to be the ideal spot for the purpose of building wealth. I'm about to show you that now, and we're going to take a journey back to the 80s with some companies that you're very much familiar with. And at the end of this, I want you kind of to relate this past journey to a potential future one that we're going to discuss and actually get involved with. So I have my OneNote up and my writing pad. I'm going to almost treat this like a whiteboard. So hang tight with this. You can see on the screen, I'm going to focus on three very well-known stocks that had very humble beginnings. Companies that had humble beginnings, and even when they went through their IPO and their initial public offering, did not exactly light the world on fire. So Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, and I'm trying to think of three other companies maybe in the last 35 years that have had a bigger impact on our day-to-day than these three, at least from a recognizable brand standpoint. But what I did was I broke down their stock price of each company from their humble beginnings starting in March of 86 with Microsoft at 10 cents a share, moving on 16 years later to August of 2002 when Amazon was at about 68 cents a share, and then moving into 16 years later after that, August of 2018, when Tesla was about $18.21 a share. There's a reason why I picked these dates, and it had a little bit to do with the price points. But we're going to end our journey here with Tesla in September of 2022, where it had a peak a little bit higher than that months before. But there's a reason why I picked the September 2022 date, which I will explain at the end as we go through this. And I also priced what each of these companies' stock individually is worth today. Now, some of them have seen better days and share prices than that, but here's where we are today against very humble beginnings. Now, the lightning in a bottle spot, if you are some kind of visionary that could see what companies were going to change how we interact with the world, how we interact in an economic and business standpoint, and even our day-to-day interactions, you'd be hard-pressed to find one other than Microsoft. And the question is that could you recognize that when it was only trading at 10 cents a share in March of 1986? So I'm going to go with, and I'm going to do some math here, and let me scroll this down a little bit. I have my calculator with me. I don't know if that will show up on the screen, but let's just take humble beginnings. And I'm sitting there whispering in your ear about this company, Microsoft, that probably isn't going to give you any type of massive return for at least another decade, maybe decade and a half. And I say, hey, why don't you throw $300 at Microsoft? It's only trading at 10 cents a share. And when you do that, you're going to get yourself 3,000 shares of Microsoft. In 1986, this was a paper stock you were handed, maybe in some kind of Christmas present. Dad, mom, grandma, grandpa said, here you go, Microsoft. I believe in this company. Let's see where they end up. Just don't touch it for 16 years. Now, the discipline it would take to when the shares just go up to $1, $2, $3 without cashing that in for whatever profit that you would get would be pretty substantial. We've seen kind of the difficulty with doing that with even our current crypto shares. I mean, when you bought, if you bought Bitcoin at $2.50, 15 years ago, 14 years ago, and you had 10,000 Bitcoin because it was so cheap when you bought it, accordingly, when that gets up to $5, $10, $20, $125, $250 in 2015, where is the discipline to say, I see this thing going even higher, let me hold on to it? But let's take this from a standpoint of we are going to use this mechanism for Microsoft only to move it into the next big thing that does come across. And we come across this fledgling company, Amazon, trading at 68 cents a share. And what we want to do is we want to cash out our Microsoft shares at this amount, $26.25 for our 3,000 shares. Let me get out my Puerto Rican calculator. I guess I could do this in my head, but I'm kind of exhausted tonight, so I'm not really feeling it on that end. Yeah, $78,000 to be exact, $78,750. Not bad for putting $300 into something in March of 1986, 7 months before the Mets last won the World Series, and then holding it and riding it through the grunge era, the internet revolution, Monica Lewinsky in the late 90s, Backstreet Boys, September 11th, and then finally landing in August of 2002 and deciding, you know what, 26 bucks looks like a good time to cash out. But what if you, the visionary and the entrepreneur, wanted to roll all of that into the next big thing, which you saw on the horizon, which is Amazon? Well, then you'd take your 75 grand, you divide it by 68 cents. I'm going to do the calculator again. Divided by 0.68. You now have 115,000 shares of Amazon stock. So this is shares of Microsoft. This is 115,000 shares of Amazon. But wait, we're not done, because we're going to hold all of those 115 shares for another 16 years until Amazon goes on its historic run. And you decide now's the time to cash out and maybe roll it over into the next big thing. What happens when you cash out 115,000 shares of Amazon at $95.75? Can't wait to see what this looks like. $95.75. Yeah, you're talking $11 million right there. And that's just two plays. It was 11,095 on my screen. Two plays specifically that you had enough foresight to see the backbone of the internet and the tech revolution in the 1990s, 10 years before its time, and then the backbone of a new logistics company and supply chain behemoth that has really changed the way that we have interacted on a daily basis, a disruptor in the industry, as you would see that. How easy would it have been to recognize that and really put your faith in it when you're looking at 68 cents? Not easy. And 16 years is a very long time. We're not talking about the short attention span that our current generation has, where they buy a stock after breakfast and then want to sell it before dinner because it went up 8 cents, and they made a profit, and that dopamine hit of them gambling their way up for an extra few cents and pennies on the dollar, that's what does it for them because that's their plan. That's not what we're trying to do here. But let's say $11 million, that's a lot of money. And you, for some reason, think in August of 2018, when Tesla was trading at $18.21 a share, that you wanted to dump your entire 11 million in. I am going on extreme levels here. I'm not denying this. You dump your entire 11 million in to Tesla stock at 18.21 a share. And how many shares does that give you of Tesla stock? 608,934 shares. Now, what's that going to do? You just had $11 million and you sunk it into one company. You always heard that phrase, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And all of the really extremely wealthy people say the opposite. They say, put your eggs in one basket and then watch that basket very closely. If you were catching lightning in a bottle, that means you knew Microsoft, Amazon, and Tesla were going to be the next generation of the backbone of our society and change the way we actually interact with each other. And you're going to see that change come across in that share price, that in a mere 4 years, from Tesla's $18.21 per share in August of 2018, goes up to $363.35. Obviously, today it trades a lot lower, about half that. But you say you ride it up. It went a little bit higher than that. September 22 was one of its down and then brief spikes that had happened. There's a reason why I picked that date, though. But let's say you cash out of your 608,000 shares times 363 point what? 35? 363.35. That gives you a staggering 221,256,302. All because what? You dropped 300 on some company named Microsoft back in 1986. I want to point this out in the benefit of hindsight that gives us this, oh, this is a sure thing. No wonder you picked these three companies, because they're the three biggest. Anybody with a time machine could go back and make the same thing happen. But the reason I picked September 2022 of that is because it's right around the time I started purchasing XRP. And XRP at that time was trading about 49 cents a share. It'd fluctuate between the 30s and the 40s. That's when I first got into it and just made a plan to accumulate as much as I could. Same amount every month since September of 2022. Now, what I want to do is have you relate this method, because it won't be perfect. And obviously, I picked the extreme levels of this. But this is what I meant about having a plan in place to move money around from one column to the other when I talked about the Rule of 72 video. It's no different here. You're moving money into a potential asset that could pay off in the long run. Because if you took your 3,000 shares and just multiply and held it till today and then multiplied it, you'd have $1.2 million. But you missed out on the opportunity to get into some other plays by cashing out at a much lower rate earlier, and then riding that one up, cash it out again and roll it into a different play, ride that up, cash it out. 1.2 million is not bad, but would you like 221 million instead? Or even half of that? Or even a fourth of that? Or even a tenth of that? All of these things are possible with the right plan in place and the right asset that you're going to be actually moving that money into. Lou always said that you were about 3 or 4 plays from completely transforming your life around, regardless of how bad rock bottom was. And I want to point this out to you, that these 3 are the obvious ones, because when we go to my other tab, looking at this, the New World of Financial Order, that's what NWFO stands for up there. Yeah, you're looking at what? Microsoft, really the backbone of Web 1. And can we think of products that have probably transformed our business and day to day life more than Microsoft products in the past 25 to 30 years? I can't think of any. Amazon on the logistics and supply chain side transformed the world, and look where we are today from its humble beginnings at 68 cents per share. And then Tesla on the transportation side, I think Elon has his own plan to conquer the world. Accordingly, you're looking at humble beginnings that here's where they are today. We don't see what it took and the path to get to where they are today because all we see are the nice, pretty numbers. And your $1,000 that you're just going to put into Microsoft or Amazon or Tesla are going to get you a couple shares, so you can hope you can make some pennies of it on the way up. Where if you're looking over at the next generation of what we're looking at with XRP, which is the backbone of the new financial world, XDC is going into its own supply chain dynamic and looking to revolutionize that on the blockchain. And then XLM from its peer-to-peer. It's very possible that as you're looking for the same way to do this from back in March of 1986, it might be a much faster way to go with these three and make a play with it, and then go into the other ISO coins, which could be Algorand, it could be HBAR, it could even be Cardano. Quant's a little bit expensive right now. Quant is trading in the hundreds the same way these stocks are, mainly because they've scaled up accordingly. But looking at the next wave of this, just to move money around, I'm going to do a separate video on what those numbers would look like, even if they're very small, humble, and not ridiculous like the last tab that I just showed you, which is lightning in the bottle, best case scenario. So I'd like us to think about the future of this and how to do this and learn again the difference between earning money and making money. And the making money dynamic is what's going to put you and your family on that path to financial freedom. So hope this was helpful. Hope this was useful. Stay tuned for the next video. Giant hugs.